Welcome to In Your Defense, Galveston and Beyond.
Hey, everybody. Welcome back to an all new episode of Defense on the Coast with Mark Diaz, a passionate criminal defense attorney with over 25 years of experience defending the rights of Texans. I'm your host, Mike Leon. That's not Mark Diaz. Mark Diaz is in the next episode. But for right now, in today's episode, we're going to be talking about what it takes to clear your name after an arrest with one of the attorneys over at Mark Diaz and Associates, and that's Jessica Ebbs. Just so good to see you. Let's get into this because I want you to break down for our audience here. When someone wants to clear their criminal record in the state of Texas, what does this actually mean under Texas law? If you can explain this.
Sure. But first, thanks for having me, Mike. I'm happy to be here. So, breaking that down, I think it's important to understand there's a distinction with clearing your record between an expunction and a non disclosure. Those are two different beasts, but both of them carry a lot of weight and possibly helping somebody's future look a lot brighter than maybe it is with whatever is on their record. So, what is an expunction? What is a non disclosure? An expunction is basically like a deletion, right? We can go back and we can take criminal history and we can delete it as though it never happened. It's a really cool thing under the law. Now, a order of non-disclosure also operates to help in helping clear someone's criminal record, but it doesn't delete it, it seals it. So that would be from public view. So for the most part, people the public is viewing your criminal history. Now, the difference between the non-disclosure and the expunction being that a non-disclosure, law enforcement is still going to be able to see it. Certain governmental agencies can still see it, but it still has a lot of teeth and does help people with clearing their record. So kind of bottom line is one erases the record, one hides it, but both have the ability to give somebody a fresh start.
Well, that's great to hear. And I would love to learn a little bit more about, are there certain offenses, given those two that you just mentioned in terms of wiping versus hiding, are there certain offenses that just can't be wiped from your record no matter how much time has passed?
So the answer to that is mostly yes. There are some offenses that can never are taken off of your record. But let me start with the exception to that, because there are sometimes an ability to take some of those most heinous crimes that society considers, let's say like murder, aggravated sexual assault. Those types of cases almost can never be expunged, but they can if you, let's say, get pardoned for the offense, or let's say you went to trial and you were found not guilty, right? You were acquitted. And so under those circumstances, it doesn't matter the offense. You're going to be able to get that expunction and you're certainly eligible. Now, when it comes to a non-disclosure, all of those offenses, family violence, sex offenses, human trafficking, capital murder, the ones I just mentioned, those are never going to be eligible, unfortunately. Now, going even further, let's say you were charged with one of those offenses I just mentioned, right? And you were indicted, formally charged, and the case was dismissed. A lot of people think, well, I should be eligible for an expunction, right? My case was dismissed. But what the law says, and the statute's very technical, but what it says is if you were formally charged for one of these offenses, and let's say it's one of those serious offenses that doesn't carry a statute of limitations, right? If it doesn't carry a statute of limitations, then you can't get an expunction for it, because a lot of these situations, they're making you wait out the statute of limitations. The only way is if your attorney can get the district attorney's office to agree to an expunction, which is pretty hard to do. It can happen, but one of the many reasons to have a good attorney handling this type of issue for you.
Yeah. Just let me ask you, for expunction non-disclosure, can you kind of break down how long the process usually takes? What kind of paperwork or hearings are involved in all this?
Yeah, absolutely. So basically, you're looking at like 3 to 6 months, and it is a lot of paperwork, but it's a lot of paperwork for your attorney, not necessarily you as the client. Basically, what we have to do initially is, if you're eligible or somewhere on the line of eligibility, then we have to file a petition. It has to be verified. We file it in the district court of the county where your arrest occurred. Right. And then, of course, from there, the state's going to get notice and they can object, and the state being the district attorney's office. Now, some judges will sign an expunction or a non-disclosure without a hearing if there is no opposition. A lot of courts will actually do that. I handle a lot of these here in Galveston County. Others will set a short hearing, and sometimes they get granted, hopefully, after that short hearing. Now, once that's signed, certified copies go out to DPS and every agency involved that's named in that verified petition, and then they're ordered to physically destroy or seal the records that are concerned in the petition. So quite a bit of paperwork, but what I like to tell clients who hire us on this issue is, it's all your work. The hardest part is on the front end as the client. Everything beyond that point, once you hire us, is pretty much us handling it. So paperwork for us, but not so much for the client.
That's good to hear. I'm sure clients love hearing that.
They
So let
do.
me, yeah, I'm sure they do. Let me ask you, what kind of, you mentioned it before about the expunction and the non-disclosures and hiding versus wiping. And you also mentioned a little bit, but I'd love for you to dive deeper about the impact that this has from clearing a record in terms of getting employment, housing, either getting approved for a rental or a loan, professional licenses. Can you kind of explain what impact that does have for clearing someone's record?
Absolutely. So it's a huge impact. It really is. So I'm kind of a nerd when it comes to these because I think that, for anybody to say, oh, what a cool part of the law, kind of makes you a little bit nerdy. But in this situation, I always say this: expunction law is wonderful for this reason and this reason alone, right? A person can legally deny the arrest or the charge if that expunction was granted, or even a non-disclosure in certain situations. Then if you're in a job interview and they ask you, have you ever been arrested for X offense? Then the law says that you can legally deny it. So essentially, it authorizes you to lie because you were arrested, but by effect, it was deleted, right? If it was an expunction. Now, when it comes to non-disclosures, which of course don't have the greater teeth that the expunction does, but still has a lot of effect. And here's how. Employers, landlords, professional boards, even, they're typically going to run public background checks. And if it's a public background check, then it's not going to show whether it was non-disclosed or expunged. Now, when it comes to professionals, however, we're talking like teachers, nurses, law enforcement. Now, that it is a situation where the non-disclosure may show, but an expunction certainly would not. So we're talking the difference between maybe a stalled career or maybe even a career at all. And it gives you a second chance. In my opinion, it is truly one of the most life-changing remedies in criminal law.
Yeah. Jess, what are some mistakes that people make that you mentioned a moment ago? Get an attorney, right? Some people try to go at it alone. They try to handle this on themselves. What are some of the biggest mistakes you've seen people make who try to handle this themselves without consulting an attorney?
So, to kind of answer that just as directly as I can, I don't know of any person who's been able to be successful on their own without an attorney, and that's not because of them not being smart enough or not knowing the system. It's simply because these things are technical. They are so technical and they are difficult, even for some attorneys to understand. But even so, I have seen some mistakes that the clients come in and they're like, I don't get this. This is why it got shut down, whatever it may be, and that's going to be the number one reason is they're miscalculating their eligibility dates or their waiting periods. That with a non-disclosure, you have to essentially, if you're eligible, right, you did a successful deferred adjudication, you're going to generally have a waiting period. Almost all offenses do, unless it's an automatic non-disclosure, but that's a much more complex thing to talk about, which maybe on a different episode. But with those eligibility or waiting periods, like I said, they're technical. The statute is changing quite frequently. We actually just got a revamp to the latest statute when it comes to expunctions, not necessarily non-disclosures. So that's one big area that people are not understanding or making some mistakes with, right? Another is going to be forgetting to include agencies like DPS or local PDs. You have to serve pretty much every involved agency, and that can get also very technical. And if you're not privy to your own discovery, and unfortunately, defendants don't get copies of their own discovery, right? But your attorneys do. And so that is a great way to figure out what agencies need to be served, because they all need to be served if you want this to be in effect properly. Now, here's the last thing. People assume that every dismissal qualifies. And as I mentioned earlier, they don't. Unfortunately, if there's not a statute of limitation, then that means you're never going to become eligible unless the district attorney agrees. Um, so basically, looking at all of these things, I mean, having a lawyer ensures that it's done right the first time, because here's kind of a point I'll wrap it up with. When you file that petition and it's wrong, um, you don't get that fee back that you pay, and it's a pretty hefty fee. So I mean, here in Galveston County, you're talking, oh, I think it's over $500 right now. And so if you mess that thing up, then you're out that money. And so that's a shame, right? Because people are trying to get their lives back on track, and that's a lot of money to a lot of people, to most people, and that's unfortunate. So I think it's just a lot better to have your attorney do it the right way, because ultimately they usually end up in our office anyways.
Yeah. Just let me ask you a technical question here. Does it make a difference which county you file in, or even how familiar, let's say, your attorney is with the local courts?
So yes, it matters jurisdictionally. You have to file the petition where the offense that you're seeking to get sealed. You have to file it in that district court. Now, going a little bit further, how familiar should your attorney be with local courts? They should be very familiar with them, because and I can speak to this personally, every county has a different process when it comes to expunctions, much like anything, but especially with expunctions, because there's always a certain person that handles them. There's always a certain prosecutor that handles them. Even courts within a county handle them differently. So we're talking, if you have an attorney who knows their way around that court system, then you're going to save yourself months and headaches when it comes to a process that is already so overly technical and difficult to understand when you aren't familiar with it.
Jess, could you give us an example? Maybe you have someone recent or in the past, a client, they got their record expunged, like you mentioned, or cleared, and it really helped turn their life around. Do you have an example of that you can share with the audience?
I do. Yes, I have a great example. Now, and it was somewhat recent. We represented a woman, and I think this will hit home for anybody who has kids or has any kids that are close to them. She was a hardworking mother. She was a nurse, and she was charged with a crime that involved her child that she was not guilty of. And we knew this. We represented her in the criminal case, and then later in the expunction that we were happy to get granted. So we ended up taking the case to trial, and she was found not guilty. She was exonerated, and so we were able to immediately file for that expunction. Now, as a result of the arrest from this criminal offense, she had a collateral custody case taken out against her. Just the sole basis was this case, right? And so once we were able to expunge this and exonerate this woman, this hardworking, just normal woman who hadn't done anything wrong, that case that was based solely on the criminal matter, it went right away. Because there was nothing to talk about. It expunged the records. There was no offense report. You're not even allowed to mention it once an expunction is granted, and it's a criminal offense to do so. So it has so much teeth. And for this person specifically, it was wonderful. It was wonderful because she was able to, one, keep her kids, and those kids needed her as much as she needed them, and then two, she was able to keep her nursing license, which is how she was able to provide for that family. So to see a family being able to be kept intact like that when the system almost broke them down, it was a really wonderful thing.
Yeah, that is great to hear. Justice, we land a plane on this episode. For someone that's listening to this, they're ready to take that step to potentially clear their record. What's the first move that you would advise them that they make today?
So you can do one of two things or both. Well, call an attorney, right? That's your first move. And for us specifically, what we do whenever people call and just inquire, then we'll try to help look at their criminal history. We'll try to locate as much as we can based on what they're telling us. It happened in Galveston County, it happened in Harris County, so we're going to try to look and help you out, right? And this is just as a matter of our free consults, right? A lot of attorneys are willing to do this, but if you are also willing to do this, then it makes our job even better. And that is, DPS allows you to run your own criminal background check, your personal background check. And it takes a little bit of legwork, but if you're able to do that, you get the records back. then I think at that point it's time to contact an attorney if you haven't already, and let them know that you have it, and then they can look at it and then tell you what your eligibility is. Don't guess. Don't try to base what your reading of that criminal history is on what you believe the law is, because it's just difficult. It really is. And like I said, I think you end up back with us anyway. So just don't waste your time. Don't waste the headache. And finally, really, the sooner that you start, really, the sooner that you can stop being defined by your past and start being defined by what comes next, right? And it really does have so much teeth to it. It's a great statute that I think people should take advantage of a little bit more. And it doesn't hurt to call an attorney and ask.
Don't be defined by your past, be defined by your next step. Jess, thank you so much for the time and insights on this. We truly appreciate it.
Oh, thank you for having me, Mike. I appreciate it.
And thank you to everybody out there listening to another installment of Defense on the Coast. If you want to connect with Jess and Mark and the team, do me a favor, visit texascriminaljustice.com today. Don't forget to like, subscribe, leave us a comment and review, or share this episode with someone who needs to hear it. As always, I'm Mike Leon. We'll see everybody next time.
Thanks for watching. Be sure to hit that like and subscribe button and leave us a review in the comments.